I'm not much of a football fan anymore, but there was a time that I was. There was a time back in my early Army days that we would travel to. I was stationed in Washington, D.C., so we would travel on Saturdays when Jan would let me to all the neighboring. It got to be pretty routine after a while. The same group of us would pile into a car, and we'd either head out to Annapolis to watch Navy play, or we could go, on any college day. The University of Maryland was there. University of West Virginia wasn't far. Georgetown was there. You could have your fill of football and not have to go very far at all. There were times that we went to the Army-Navy game up in Philly, and there was other times we went up on Sundays to watch Baltimore or the rest of them play. If you're a football fan, Washington D.C. is the place to be. You don't have to root for. You don't have to have one team. You can have 10 of them. And so we would pile into the car, and we'd go watch the various ball games, and then we'd come back, and it was just a whole lot of fun. I haven't watched a football game since that time very seriously, and I don't get a chance to do it much anymore. But it's always fun to relive those memories, because they kind of remind us of a period when I was a whole lot younger, probably a whole lot better. I had different color hair and all that, so it was just fun. You never knew what you were going to see at a football game. One of the things about football that's changed, though, is this thing called the 2-minute warning. Back in the day, you all remember that. Harold's going to correct me later on if I get this wrong. I'm absolutely certain of it. But back in the day, there was one person that kept the official time. This is when they had an official scorekeeper, and he was also the keeper of the watch. And the amount of time that was shown on the clock for all the stadium to see wasn't necessarily how much time was left in the game. The only person that really knew how much time was in the game was the official scorekeeper, who he knew what it was, but he was the only one. So you would see the time on the clock, and when it got down to 2 minutes, we got a timeout, and he would announce to everybody that was there, we got a 2-minute warning. We got a 2-minute warning. And so what 2-minute warning meant was that if you're way ahead in the game, 2-minute warning to the fans meant it's time to head to the parking lot, because you're going to lose the game anyway, or maybe you're going to win the game anyway. But to the teams, particularly the one that was losing, that it meant that if you got anything left, now's a good time to use it. Whatever you got in reserve, don't hold back. This is the time to use what you've got. This 2-minute warning. It was kind of fun. It was a whole lot of fun, because you see all kinds of weird things that then happen in 2 minutes of play that you don't see during the regular part of the football game. And you kind of wonder to yourself a little bit, why don't they play like that all the time? You know the game's going to end sometime, and you would like to be ahead. Why do you always play in the 2 minutes like there's no tomorrow, and the rest of the time, so what? And then after they pile off the field, you listen to the after the game results, and every person there tells you how they give 110% all the time, or maybe it's 150% now, I don't know. It may be more than that. It's been a long time since I played the game or watched the game. The lesson that we get from Mark's gospel this morning, and this is nothing new, because we shift years, and so as we change years, the lectionary goes from Matthew to Mark and picks up with Advent, and so we just left Matthew telling us about all the parables about being prepared, about knowing that Christ is returning, and you need to be ready for this return. And Matthew is very stern about it and talks about, all the things that you have to do right. Mark kind of softens it a little bit by, instead of saying that, that you have to stay on this heightened and state and do things, Mark just says, keep alert. Just keep alert. Another way to be, he says, is kind of like be sober. Use sober judgment. Just be alert. And then he tells the story about the servant that the owner that left and put his servants in charge of the household and said, just when I come back, just make sure everything's the way that I left it. Just don't mess it up. And I will come back. I make no mistake about that. I will be back. And this is what we celebrate today as we begin this Advent season. We're looking both directions right now. We're looking back at the first coming at Christmas, and we're going to celebrate that, maybe, if we're still here, right? We will celebrate it. But we're looking forward to this time of Christ's return, this time when the hour is unknown. We don't know when that's going to be. It could be tomorrow. It could be this afternoon. It could be 1,000 years from now. But that's not the point. That's not the point. We've sort of been given a 2-minute warning that if we've got anything left in the tank, now's the time to pull it out. That if you're feeling like you need a little bit of encouragement and you need somebody to help, if you've got whatever you've got, you need to drag it out and pull it to the forefront right now. Remember, along this line, remember what happened in 2011 with a guy that was a radio announcer, evangelist, or whatever, and Family Radio Incorporated was the name of his business, or the name of his group. But he was a radio broadcaster, and he spent, the whole campaign cost, I think, almost $100 million to announce the fact that May 21st at 6 o'clock was the last day. Harold Camping was his name. Does anybody remember that when it was in 2011? That wasn't that long ago. Wasn't that long ago. And then, I thought that was very bold of him. And this week, I've gone back and I started pulling up the YouTube videos of him preaching and evangelizing and listening to him. And he's not somebody I would listen to on a regular basis, but he's got some good points. And after a while, I got to feeling so sorry for him because he later changed the date that didn't happen. But the surprising part about that is he didn't learn from his experience in 2006 when he had already predicted it then, and it didn't happen. The lesson is that from Jesus this morning, he said that nobody knows this hour, and so I wouldn't waste a whole lot of mental energy trying to figure out when that time is, because it's really not worth it, and what you're going to end up doing is embarrassing yourself a whole bunch. There were fortunes that were lost over that. There were people who committed suicide over that. It was devastating, it was tragic, and it didn't have to be that way. We have to be careful what it is that we profess and what it is that we say when we have an audience of people listening to us. And that goes for just about any profession. But the idea of a 2-minute warning doesn't change, though. The idea is that Jesus, in Mark's text, that the disciples are asking him, because Jesus has just told them about, they come out of the temple, the disciples are with him, and they say what glorious stones these are, how wonderful the temple building is, and Jesus tells them everything is temporary. Nothing will last forever. These stones will be thrown on top of each other. And not only that, they're going to come and get you and persecute you, and you're going to go through some rough times, and there will be a desolating sacrilege that takes place in this temple, which means there's going to be some secular event that takes place. In 167, Antiochus IV Epiphanes put up a shrine of himself. This is BC. Put up a shrine of himself in that very same temple as he took over Jerusalem. And later on, one of the kings of Roman, I think it wasn't Claudius, but it was another Roman that was put there that was afterwards. He set up a statue of himself inside the temple. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And Jesus is already, don't worry about that. I'm telling you, these things are going to happen. And they're going to happen in our day too. I'm sure that if we look around, we think that we have seen some of the most amazing things that we've ever seen right now. All we have to do is look at what's going on in the news today, and we are probably ready to say it can't last much longer. The world just can't keep going the way that it is. And we're tempted to say we must be in our last hour. But see, we don't know that. But the temptation is there, and we get it. We get it. And Jesus is not, his message coming through Mark is not so much the when this is going to happen, because he already tells you to be alert for that. It's what are you going to do in the meantime? How are you going to live your life in the meantime? Right up till that moment. And if you think that your life is spent, that you've exhausted all your energy, you have nothing left to give, nothing left to make you get out of bed and go one more step, the 2-minute warning is saying you need to drag it out of your closet right now and find it. Because we have to continue. We can't just stop and say, just pull the covers over our head and say, we're done. The parable that Jesus tells right after this from the Gospel of Mark says it's like a master that went away and left his servants in charge, not knowing when he was come back, and they have to be alert when he comes back. He's talking about stewardship. Stewardship of the earth, of everything that's here. All of our possessions, all that we do, stewardship with each other, the way we conduct our lives. It's important. When all this is going to take place in the future, that's not important. It's not important. It's how will we engage each other in the meantime? That's what's important. Mark has Jesus telling him, don't worry. All this stuff will pass. All this stuff will take place. And you don't have to worry about it because it's going to happen to you, and you're not going to like your lives either by being my followers this close to my death. He tells them that. But he says, your glory, your reward in heaven is what you need to set your sights on. C.S. Lewis said that if we live our lives, if we aim at heaven, then we get earth anyway. But if we only aim at earth, that's all we get. That's all we get. And you see, so we're supposed to, this house that we live in, you know, this idea of making sure that our house is prepared, that we're ready to meet Jesus when he comes back, that if we're not taking care of the heavenly business and taking care of the things that we should be doing, and Jesus laid those out in Matthew last week, taking care of the poor, feeding the hungry, giving water to those that are thirsty, visiting those that are in jail, taking care of the sick, all those things. That we're not being stewards. We're not watching. We're not dragging that out, even though we're tired. We're not getting it out of the closet and using what we need while we're in this period of this 2-minute warning. Mother Teresa said it's not all that God doesn't call us to be successful at what we do. He calls us to be faithful. Think of that. And all that we do, and all the way that we will spend our lives as we anticipate the second coming of Christ, if we quit striving for success and start striving for faithfulness. Faithfulness in following the word of Christ and what he calls us to do. To be stewards of this earth, to be stewards with each other, stewards with all the things that he's given us. I had this really, really great video this morning that wouldn't download. But it talks, the idea is that what Jesus is doing is encouraging his disciples. That he's saying that as bad as things are going to get, you don't have to worry about that. I am with you. I will help you run this race. My Spirit will never leave you. I will help you take those steps that you need. I will do everything that you can't do by yourself. The words from Mark this morning are made for us. It's made for us to give to each other. It's a scripture of how we're to live our lives in the meantime. It's what are we doing in the period of the 2-minute warning? Do we have a Hail Mary pass that we need to get out of our toolbox right now and use it? Is there some play that we didn't use before that we can use right now that might work? I did come across something this morning, and Linda was gracious to get it on the screen for us, to get it into the presentation. has to do with a woman running the race. And as she runs this race, I can hear Jesus whispering in her ear to go on. Take the next step. You can do this. This race is tough. I know that it is. And you've been dealt a tough blow, but you can get through this. And not only that, you can be faithful by running this race. Jesus saying, you got this? You can do this? I'm with you. I know it's hard. Life is tough. Yeah, you've been down, but you can get back up. You see the encouragement that's in here? This is what Jesus is speaking to us this morning. As he says, I know you're living under a 2-minute warning. Yes, I know that. And I know this world sometimes is a terrible place. And it's difficult to live in here. But I'm with you. I'm with you. And together we can do this. And we can still build this kingdom. And we can do it because we're doing this together. As we go into this Advent season and we look towards the Christ that will come back, not so much to pull the rug out from underneath our feet and say, I'm back. You see? It's to find us faithful through the encouragement that we give to each other. That's what Advent season is all about. We expect and we anticipate and we look forward to that day, just as you look forward to the end of that race. Encourage one another. Encourage one another to stay faithful. When you see somebody that has nothing left in their bag, give them part of yours. Help them in their struggle. And this will be a glorious Christmas for everybody. Thanks be to God.